There's no shortage of dynamic duos that seem to be just unstoppable. So for this video, I'm going to look at one of the best wide receiver 1-2 punches in college football history in Devonta Smith and Jaylen Waddle.
To Smith, beautiful play call. All kinds of running room and an Alabama touchdown. He brings pressure on Jones. They didn't get there in time, and it's a touchdown.
There aren't many duos in college football that rival the two wideouts out there with the Crimson Tide in Waddle and Smith, and for good reason. Both are standout talents second to none. Straight out of Amite City, Louisiana, Devonta was a dominant high school talent and a top 10 ranked wide receiver in the country. As a legitimate four-star, schools like Arkansas, Georgia, LSU, Florida State, and Bama were all after him. I don't think I have to tell you what school he chose, as he became a Razorback at Arkansas.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Just kidding, he became a Bama boy, and the rest is history. Although he wasn't able to do much as a freshman with only around 150 yards and 3 touchdowns, his play against Georgia made up for it. Devonta came in clutch as a freshman and earned the Crimson Tide yet another national championship.
Tagovailoa trying to make up for it, fires to the end zone, touchdown! Alabama wins!
Following an extremely solid ending to his first season as a Bama boy, Devonta elevated his production quite a bit with nearly 700 yards and 6 touchdowns as he gained a much larger target share of the offense. Now that Devonta had established himself as one of the most premier wide receivers in the SEC, it was time for the fun to begin, and as a junior he had over 1,250 receiving yards and 23 touchdowns, during which he broke the SEC receiving touchdowns record. After such a strong junior campaign, the sky was the limit as a senior, and Devonta went absolutely bonkers during his last year at Tuscaloosa.
Jones back to the completion now to Devonta Smith. Smith in the open field.
Out there in Houston, Texas, Jaylen was killing it at Epicostal High as he made his way up the ranks to become a top 10 wideout, along with his buddy in Devonta. As you could guess, Jaylen had a boatload of offers, but the main ones were from Texas A&M, TCU, Oregon, Florida State, and Bama. At Tuscaloosa, Jaylen didn't waste any time and killed it as a freshman with nearly 850 yards and 7 touchdowns. With such a breakout freshman season, Jaylen was the SEC Freshman of the Year, and instead of building on that success as a sophomore, he regressed a bit and only had a little bit over 550 yards and 6 touchdowns. Going into his junior season, Jaylen wanted to get back to freshman form, and he certainly did.
Made a huge tackle. Mac Jones airing it out for Waddle, and he makes the catch.
It seems like 2020 was a perfect storm for Devonta and Jaylen, as the two were both at the top of their game. From the beginning, the two were not joking around, and against Missouri, they did their thing. In the battle against the Tigers, Devonta started off the season solid with nearly 90 yards, and Waddle just went crazy with over 130 and 2 touchdowns in just an absolutely insane showcase for the two. The game was a cakewalk for the Crimson Tide as they won pretty easily 38-19. Although they were coming off an easy win against Missouri, Alabama proved that they were legit against the number 13 ranked Texas A&M Aggies. In the SEC showdown, Devonta put up a solid 63 yards and a touchdown, and Jaylen went absolutely ham with over 140 yards and a touchdown as the two gashed the Aggies' defense. Even though A&M was a top 5 team, Alabama didn't care as they won 52-24. Following an underwhelming start to a dominant year, Devonta decided to flip a switch as he ran all over Ole Miss with over 160 yards and a touchdown. Not only did Devonta just destroy the Rebels, but on the other side, Waddle had exactly 120 yards receiving, as the Crimson Tide won in an extremely high-scoring game, 63-48. With such a great start to the season, Alabama showed that they meant business, as Mac Jones and the duo were just tearing up the SEC. After beating the Rebels, Alabama was faced with one of their toughest matchups of the season against the number 3 ranked Georgia Bulldogs. Although a seemingly tough matchup, it was a field day for the duo as they both had over 160 yards receiving and combined for 3 touchdowns as Alabama cruised through the Bulldogs 41-24. Following such a great game by the two, going up against Tennessee was seemingly a cupcake matchup until
taking the locker room, would go to the hospital, and Jaylen Waddle out for the season with a broken ankle.
On the kickoff, Waddle broke his ankle and his season was over. Following the injury, Devonta turned on the burners and went full blast the rest of the year. Even though he didn't do much against Tennessee with only around 70 yards, it was only the beginning of his domination. The following 4 games were ridiculous for Devonta, as he had over 700 yards and 11 touchdowns in an unheard of streak that launched him to the very top of the Heisman watch.
Tua looks that way to him and now goes down the middle for the home run. Devonta Smith!
Even though he ended the season quiet with only 22 against the Razorbacks, Devonta won the Heisman.
Winner of the Heisman Trophy is Devonta Smith.
With the best quarterback, running back, and wide receiver in Big Mac Jones, Najee, and Devonta all on the same team, they were just destined for success. Although an extremely talented roster, Alabama struggled against Florida. And even though Devonta killed it with over 180 yards and 2 touchdowns, the Crimson Tide barely beat the Gators 52-46, but were able to make it back to the college football playoff. Throughout this time, Jaylen was trying to make his way back on the field, but just had to watch as Devonta showed out. In the semifinal against Notre Dame, Devonta was pretty much unguardable as he had exactly 130 yards and 3 touchdowns in a big win by the Crimson Tide 31-14. Against the wishes of his fellow teammates and coaches, Jaylen hobbled his way back onto the field in the national championship, but was not able to do much and only was able to get around 30 yards. But on the other side, Devonta had a one-of-a-kind performance with over 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. I probably don't have to tell you how the game ended, but anyways, Alabama won big over the Buckeyes 52-24. Although he only played 4.5 games, Jaylen had just under 600 yards and 4 touchdowns as he gave NFL scouts everything they needed. On the other side, Devonta had a phenomenal season with over 1,850 yards and 23 touchdowns. Not only a phenomenal season, but good enough to win him a Heisman and launch his draft stock to the moon. The duo absolutely killed it in the games they played, and are now both top 3 wide receiver prospects in the draft, and are ready to dominate in the league. Devonta Smith and Jaylen Waddle were just unstoppable, and are now looking to tear up the NFL. It's just up to them.
Open field, that man to beat, you can forget about it. Devonta Smith, touchdown Alabama.
Man there, got him on the fly. Waddle, there's nobody going to catch him. Jaylen Waddle, touchdown.
Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed, subscribe, like, and comment what videos you want me to make next. But anyways, I will see you guys on Tuesday, and peace out.